to the Macworld podcast. I'm senior editor Roman Loyola. We're joined remotely by staff writers. Excuse me, I just gave them promotions online. Michael Simon.
No extra money.
Wait, no take backs.
Sorry. Staff writers Michael Simon and Jason Cross. Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm in studio
good
with
afternoon.
associate editor Leif Johnson. Sorry.
It's okay.
And
No promotion there.
It's been a long day, Rom.
It's been a long couple days. And most importantly, the man behind the scenes is our producer, Dan Masaoka. Hi, Dan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Dan is monitoring our Twitter and YouTube feeds. So if you have any comments or questions, please let us know. Post them in those forums, and Dan will chime in and let us know what you guys are thinking. So today, the reason why I'm frazzled is because I just came flying last night, zooming down the freeway to get back here. I was in Cupertino this morning. As everyone knows, yesterday there was an Apple event, so to introduce a new education iPad and some new education initiatives. But also, so this morning I had a meeting with Apple to go pick up the new iPad. So I have actually the new iPad, and I'm actually going to give it to the person who will be doing the review for us.
Tease it off a little bit.
So, Mr. Leif Johnson. So in this bag are some goodies that Apple loaned to us. So we have here the new iPad. Oh, look, there it is.
Got a smart cover. The kids won't be.
They gave us a smart cover to protect it. And there's the new iPad.
Yeah, you can lift it up a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
Get them
Perfect.
back in the way.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
All right.
So
And so
this is the new iPad, the new $329 iPad, $299 if you're going through the education channels. And it's the iPad with support for Apple Pencil. So it has an A10 processor in it. And so it's brand spanking new. It still has the plastic on it.
That's the best part.
Not anymore.
So-
That's the best
Not
part.
let's see.
It's fingerprint free.
Not anymore.
So, but now we have it. So if anybody watching, if you guys have questions or comments about the new iPad, please let us know. The problem
The
is
first
that
thing they're always going to say is, can we do a drop test?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
you can
It
imagine.
breaks just like every other iPad that ever released.
So it's consistent results. So
And charger.
since it's a new iPad, of course, anybody who's set up an iPad knows you have to go through a setup process, which doesn't actually make for good video. So if you guys have any comments or questions, please let us know. And
Looks,
Leif
unless I'm
takes it
getting
on.
shadows, that's the LTE version.
that is the LTE version.
Okay.
Very
So-
nice.
The one thing they did tell me was that they did. They didn't talk about this in the presentation, but supposedly cellular performance has improved in this new iPad.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be a little faster.
I imagine it's the same wireless chips and stuff that were in the iPhone 7. It's got to be.
I
'cause
didn't
it's the
ask that, but
probably the whole A10 modules
Right.
stuff.
right.
I would
But that
guess.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
Is that
Leif-
using the eSIM or is that a regular SIM slot on the side there?
It's
Do I need to find a paperclip?
Let's see.
Real quick, Ron
here.
on Twitter is saying, hopefully retailers like Costco, Target, Best Buy will do a special discount bundle with a pencil. Have you heard anything about possible packages?
They did not mention anything. They did say to me, and I think I missed this during the presentation if they did it. So I actually went to the presentation in Chicago
But you fell
yesterday.
asleep in the back of the auditorium?
It was such a brain dump of stuff going on that, when I was trying to write stuff and take notes, stuff gets by me a lot. So they did tell me today, though, that there is a special education price of the pencil for $89. So, and Like, I just blanked. What is the regular price of the pencil? Is it
99?
99?
100, yeah.
199.
So you save $10 if you're buying it through
10%
the
off.
channel.
Schools, go run and get 100 of them.
Yeah.
101 now because You're saving $10 on each one. You can buy one more.
And we have two
Yeah, it
comments.
would-
Go ahead.
No, carry on.
I was gonna say we have two comments on Twitter. Livity is saying all I care about is iOS 11.3, and Bonnie is asking you to tell her about the educational features.
So the educational features, that's a good question because for all intents and purposes, there's nothing really special about this iPad. Does that make sense? You know what I mean by that? Other than
just
it
an
has
iPad.
pencil support.
Yeah.
Right. So the education features is more about the software that they've put out. So, the idea, I guess you can say hardware wise, the ability to use pencil with the iPad makes it an education feature, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because maybe it's easier, how many kids are going to be able to, hunt and peck like
I think the
Lake's
biggest
doing
thing
now.
is that now iWork is free
Right.
and comes with. In fact, I think it's pre-installed on the new iPads or something. I think I remember them saying something like that.
Yeah.
But it's free now, and those are meant to be school apps. They're gonna support the pencil for marking up and doing corrections and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's
So,
So-
in case people don't know, the iWork apps used to be, or they used to call this bundle of apps the iWork apps, and it was
Right.
Numbers, which is their spreadsheet app, Pages, which is their word processor, and Keynote, which is their presentation app. And they used to bundle it in a grouping called. They used to bundle it and call it iWork, but they don't really call it iWork anymore. Because
That's
of
true.
the App Store, you buy everything a la carte, kind of, I guess, and so they don't really call it. I mean, and for legacy's sake, we call it iWork because it's in context of those three apps.
But they were $10 each, I think, on iOS.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they changed that 6 or 8 months ago or something. I remember they became free a little while ago. They were free
Yeah.
to anyone who bought a new Mac or a new iPad or a new iPhone,
Right.
and then they just made them free for everybody. I don't know, 6 months ago, a few months ago.
Yeah.
But there is new stuff, as Jason was saying. There's iBooks Author is built into Pages now, and there's better pencil support, and you can annotate. And actually, that's not out yet. It's coming in like a later update.
Yeah.
It's a beta,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, this smart annotation that they have. So you don't if you have a project, you won't mess up the whole thing by drawing all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, the software focus stuff is really within the software that you're using, the iWork apps. I mean, they also showed off some augmented reality apps that could be used in the classroom. Like they have, I forgot the name. Is it Frogpedia? Is that what it's called?
Some kind of a with like a dissection thing. for
Yeah.
classes. But
Yeah.
So you-
Virtual frog dissection.
Yeah, you could do virtual frog dissection. And there were a few other AR type apps that you can use.
But the biggest, you really need to be in a school that takes these things on to get the full. I mean, their advantage that they're available in the App Store, but
Right.
if you don't have a whole classroom to work with, they're kind of pointless.
Yeah. So,
Unless you want to dissect a frog on your kitchen counter.
We do have some questions regarding, I guess, the physical aspect of it. Hugo on Twitter asks if it has a laminated screen, so is it like any more durable?
Yeah,
It does not.
Um,
it does not.
And Iron is asking, does it have the special keyboard connector like the iPad Pro does? So would it be useful
Also
for
not.
writing papers?
It does not.
Yeah, you'd have to get the smart cover and a Bluetooth keyboard if you want to kind of emulate that experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And Miguel on YouTube is asking if it has 4 or 2 speakers.
2.
Two, just like the other, just like the previous
Yeah,
iPad 7.
it's not
9/7.
quite an iPad, with the exception of the pencil. It's the same as last year's iPad
Right.
in that it's
Yep.
it's not a Pro.
It's the
got a better
A10
processor.
and pencil and even last year's iPad Pros. That's the A10X,
Yeah,
which is
it looks
like
a little
a
fast.
which is a little faster.
Yeah.
Something I think it's about 50% faster graphics and 10% faster CPU or something like that. So it's the A10, not the A10X. It's half as much storage. It's
Yeah.
32 instead of 64 on the Pros.
Yep.
And it doesn't have ProRes, and it's not the wide color gamut,
Right.
and it doesn't have True True Tone.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's very much just like the old 9.7, only with pencil support and the A10.
Maybe Leif can show it off real quick, and I will give you the old laptop or the old iPad, sorry, which is I think the 9.7, and you can compare them.
Sure. Yeah, I just now got past you saw me entering my code here to do it, and it actually kind of failed the first time. Well, it didn't actually fail; it just wouldn't do anything. So I had to cancel and do it again, and it went right through. But that's what I've been doing this whole time, is setting it up. And so it's
I bet that has more to do with our Wi-Fi
right.
and everything.
That's
And like the first 2 minutes, I kept getting the password wrong on our guest Wi-Fi here. So yes, here's.
so that's the previous iPad, and
it feels a little lighter, honestly.
I think that's
LTE.
because one's Wi-Fi, one's LTE. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a couple ounces.
yeah.
And so yeah, here's the backs.
Does it feel any sturdier? Hukerez is asking.
I like the feel of the new one better. This one feels a little bit too meaty or something, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's. We'll switch hands here, but yeah, it's still the same. This one here. Tell me if that's not just me. You try the one. That's the new one, and here's the old one.
And Iron is also asking if the pencil on the non-laminated one will have maybe a slightly laggier feel to it.
So, in my limited use of it, and I've probably used it for like 20 minutes total, I didn't notice any lag or delay or anything like that. They did tell me that one of the physical differences is that I guess the screen isn't as close, and I'm probably oversimplifying this description, but the screen isn't as close on this iPad than on like the iPad Pro.
Right. That's
So
correct.
in theory, you would think that would cause some lag or some delay. I didn't notice it, but again, I was just doing like scribbles and nothing really in depth or artistic. Beyond, not even nowhere near artistic, but or like I wasn't doing like any editing.
Still loading.
So I didn't notice it. But one of the reasons why Leif is doing the review is because he uses an iPad Pro and a pencil on a daily basis. So he's probably more sensitive to that kind of field than I am. So, but that's one of the things he'll definitely look at in the review.
If there's any lag somewhere that you'll notice, it's probably going to be in Touch ID. Even though it's a new iPad, it retains the first gen Touch ID sensor, not the second gen sensor, which you could always feel it just being
it's a touch
just a
slow.
little bit
Yeah.
laggy, whereas the new one's just a little more instant. You could always feel that in the phones and in the 9.7, and it's kind of a shame that they still have the 9.7. But I think they literally it feels like they replaced the screen internally, not the body glass cover or anything, and the circuit board, and like kept everything else the same.
We have a question on Twitter: is why don't you think they just will bring back the iPad Pro 9.7 inch?
I mean, I think they're all in on that 10.5 inch, which is the same body, or it's very, very similar body as a 9.7 with slimmer bezels and a larger screen. And that kind of differentiates a little more between the 9.7. I mean, we're talking about like half an inch, but it's a difference. And I don't think they're going to bring back a 9.7 inch Pro. I think the 9.7 inch is the low end consumer entry level model. The 10.5 inch is the professional Pro iPad Pro model.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah, it probably has to do with screen manufacturing too, as they made the new Pros that have ProRes and the wide color gamut and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's when they made a break to manufacturing these screens at a different size, and they're not going to go back and try and add ProRes and wide color gamut and all that stuff to the other screen size. It's like a whole other manufacturing line they've got to do.
Apple calls it ProMotion, Jason. Come on now.
I'm sorry, ProMotion. ProRes is the codec, the video codec. I'm getting messed up. Right, ProMotion. Which is impossible for searching if you ever search, because that's a word. Promotion is a word.
Right.
I just made my first Touch ID purchase and it worked great. So
So you bought something on Roman's account? Is that what you did?
it was my account actually, but I'm downloading Notability, so I'm going to use that when try out the pencil in a second. Yeah.
And Iron is asking, why do you think Apple has not incorporated Face ID with the iPad?
I think it's also goes along with two things: cost and making a product line differentiation. So,
I think if it's coming, it'll be in the Pro.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it'll happen in the Pro. But
They'd never be able to get that into their $329,
No way.
$300 for school
Yeah.
iPad. I mean, it'll be years anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is $320 cheaper than the cheapest iPad Pro. So it's a significantly lower priced machine.
Yeah, you're $9 away from getting two for the same price as the
Seriously.
Pro. So
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's like the iPhone 8, for example. We're talking about it's 750 versus 1,000. This is like half the price.
right.
yeah,
So
So this is my question. Who would buy this one versus the old 9.7? And is this going to be, Christmas's, hottest gift?
Christmas? We're talking about Christmas already, Dan?
Yeah.
It's never too
It's
early.
always-
I think,
it's almost-
honestly, at this price point, I think it's really great. I mean, I would never buy the old one at this price point, even at $100
Unless
cheaper.
if it was like $199, I might consider it. But
Maybe, yeah. But for me, the processor upgrade is really nice. That's going to really help with the AR stuff and everything. But it's that pencil support that makes such a huge deal. All those other things like ProMotion and everything on the iPad Pros, the keyboard connector, those are all nice to have. I don't know if they're twice as expensive nice to have. And yeah, there's just so many people, as far as Christmas stuff, so many people want a tablet that's like, $300 ish. And I think this is really going to be really attractive, especially, that pencil's another $100.
yeah,
But you'll always say, you're always
thing.
going to say, but I can get it later.
Yeah.
I know how cool it is. I'm trying it out in the Apple Store. Isn't this awesome? But then you can get that iPad. That's the gift, and then maybe you can get the pencil later.
See, I have my skepticism about how well it's going to be, how good it's going to be for schools and stuff. But for an actual tablet, and if I'm new to it, you got your old iPad 2 or something like that. If I were going into Verizon or something today and buy it, because that's where I bought mine, I think this is probably what I would pick up instead of a Pro. I like this already, so especially the size and the fact that I know that I can use the pencil for it, which, as Roman says, I actually use a lot.
so
It is frustrating that because Apple showed off that Logitech crayon, which is a stupid name.
I was going to mention that. Yeah,
But you can only buy it if you're a school. I think I don't even think students can buy it, but even if they can, but you can only. It's like, why not make that available to anyone buying this iPad?
I did not know that only students could get that. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Leif,
It's
why don't you open up in the
frustrating.
middle right there so people can open that
Yes,
up?
sure, yes, and keep forgetting that I can't. But so yes, I'm opening up the Apple Pencil, the 3-year-old stylus.
So here's a question, Leif. When you're reviewing it,
Yes.
Can you have a pencil? You can use a pencil like back and forth. Can you go to like iPad Pro and then jump to the iPad and can you use the same pencil on two machines?
That's a good question, and I was actually thinking about trying that out. I don't. When you pair it, it actually is paired to it. But
Right.
I almost have to wonder if because both of these will be tied to my Apple ID. If it'll be able to make that jump. Because the
I hope so,
AirPods
'cause
make
that would be important.
Yes, it's really simple. To switch for the AirPods on. Just to press a button.
Yes.
So that'd be nice to see if that works with this as well.
And just to clarify, the pencil hasn't changed, correct?
correct. It's the same pencil that came out
Same
before.
pencil.
And also, just to clarify about the Logitech Crayon, which is half the price of the pencil, it doesn't have like the pressure sensitivity that the pencil has.
Right.
But the iPad doesn't have the pressure sensitivity either. So you're not necessarily losing anything by getting it for this iPad. And it's only for this iPad. It doesn't work on the Pros.
So,
the
What
crayon,
I'm saying
you
is
mean.
I'm pretty sure that the iPad the Apple Pencil the pressure stuff isn't supported on this iPad. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't think so
Oh,
either.
I think it is.
I think it
that's-
is because
that's in
Apple
the
told me
pencil.
there is no functionality difference
Well, very
between
good.
the
Okay,
two.
okay.
Yeah.
Then I read that somewhere. I'm mistaken.
Yeah, that stuff's in the pencil. It doesn't have this iPad doesn't have the Force Touch. Doesn't have the 3D Touch
That's right.
Right.
pressure.
Yeah,
sense-
that.
like you can't hard push things.
Right.
But,
The
yeah.
four like actions. But I read somewhere that the tilt was supported, but not the pressure stuff. But okay.
Yeah, that's what they told. That was like the first question I asked because I was like, "There's got to be a catch," and they told me that all the functionality is the
Now, of
same.
course, the question
We'll
earlier
confirm
was
that.
about Christmas. What are people going to buy? We fully expect there's going to be a new iPad Pro between now and Christmas.
Yes.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's probably going to have Face ID, and it's probably going to have an A11X processor, and who knows what else.
Right.
A much better FaceTime camera wouldn't go amiss. And there's been a lot of rumors about a second generation Apple Pencil. Whether or not it's going to work with this iPad, there's some they've got some patent stuff out there and all about a pencil you can write on any surface with, and it'll sync to the iPad and stuff, and do things like touch around an object to kind of model a 3D object for AR and stuff. Those kind of things. That would be incredibly awesome. I can't imagine it'd be like a $200 pencil or something. But, those are things we could see, and that would really make a case for buying a more expensive iPad.
So yeah, as you
Yeah,
can
I mean,
see,
I would-
already writing. So
Nice.
yes, and by the way,
I wouldn't be opposed to Apple if they do come out with an Apple Pencil 2, have that one be for the Pro at $100 and knock this one down to $69 or something for the cheaper iPad, which I'm surprised they didn't do yesterday, lower the price of it. Because it's a third of the price. If you're buying it for school, it's a third of the price of the thing. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually is a good segue into our poll that we posted this morning
do have pressure sensitivity. Yes.
to our Twitter followers, and we asked if people were satisfied with Apple's education announcements yesterday. So we asked for people's opinions. There were 4 choices, and surprisingly, it was the results are somewhat even. So 19% of you who voted thought yes, the announcements were great. 26% thought yes, but there's still more to do. 28% thought they were good, but they're not really interested in what was announced. And 27% thought that the announcements were lame. So it's pretty even. Yeah.
About 3/4 of the people thought these are good announcements, whether or
Yeah.
not they were personally interested,
Right.
or it's enough. They thought, yeah, that's good. Good job, Apple.
So about 400 people voted, and so thank you for participating in that.
And video hops up really well. So yeah.
Nice.
Are we getting right into FCC?
It does iPad-y things.
It's Rick Astley. It's not,
But yeah, so the reason why I want to bring that up is because it was an education event, and it wasn't. I think, there was some anticipation that I think a lot of people were hoping that there would be more general consumer announcements, like a new MacBook Air, or what else were people expecting? So but this event was very, very, very education focused. There was a lot, the whole second half of the event was about software that they were developing for the classrooms and for teachers to use. So,
What did you personally think about it, Roman? Especially being there.
yeah, so
Like
being
right,
there,
being there.
the event itself was, it was a typical Apple event almost, pretty much. It's, it was well done. It was fun. They had a bunch of sessions afterwards that I only got to go to one because I was too busy doing some work.
Were they actually in classrooms where you got to sit in like one of the classrooms and work and stuff?
They were in classrooms, so I went into this one classroom. I believe it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was a big classroom, and they had like a 40-inch display, and they were showing the demo on there. So this is a Lane Technical College Preparatory High School.
I'm
And
sure $50,000 a year. Or
yeah,
Yeah, this is a well-to-do school.
yeah. So, and I think they mentioned something like they have like the highest number of PhDs who who went to that high school in America or something like that.
Really representative of America.
So, are you familiar with that high school? You're from
Yes,
Chicago.
yes, I am. I used to live in Chicago for 11 years.
Yeah.
Hey guys, yes, and yeah, that's a pretty rich school. It's not New Trier, but it's yeah,
And it's a private school.
it is, yeah, and
Yeah.
it was it's pretty expensive. So.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Here's Apple Notes, by the way, Apple's own program, because I was using Notability before. Works nice.
But it was very much an Apple event, except that it was just all education products, education focused. Why they didn't live stream it, I don't know. I don't know if there was. I don't think there was a technical issue about that.
It could have been because there were students in the audience and they wanted to make sure that when they edited it, there wasn't anything on there that they didn't have the rights to.
That's a good point.
Maybe something like that. Yeah. I mean, the whole section next to me was all students and teachers of the faculty of that high school. So,
And did you ask them what is a computer? Just to see if they know.
So I didn't. I should have thought about that. I didn't think about. Yeah, that's a good question. So
Fred Flintstone on YouTube is saying Apple in the classroom is equivalent to saying war is peace. Do you think that they're making any real progress, like really in schools? Because I feel like Chromebooks obviously have such a mainstay there, right?
yeah. So Chromebooks. See, so my personal viewpoint of this is a little skewed because my kids go to the San Francisco Unified School District here. They go to public schools, and there is a large investment in Apple products. So, if you tour any high school in San Francisco, you're going to see iMacs everywhere. You're going to see a lot of Apple products. You'll see iPad stations, and I think that's still true to this day. But I do understand the facts, and the facts are that Chromebooks have made a large move into that space, and if not dominating that space now.
Yep.
Last year, I'm actually writing an article about this. I believe they made up 58% of the schools in it, whereas iOS devices were down to about 19%.
Yeah.
And that was last year. And
That was K through 12. Yeah.
yes, and Mark here for over at Pizzeria World sent me a press release showing that it's only widened since then. So yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was kind of that's kind of what I think that disappointed me about the event yesterday was that Apple seems to be all in on iPad as its education tool and not notebooks at all. And that makes a lot of sense for people up to maybe 5th, 6th grade, where you're doing a lot of very basic, learning about grammar, colors, basic math, stuff like that. Once you start to get to where, well, I have to write things, or do longer, then it starts to make sense that laptops are really what is needed for education. I can't imagine being a junior in high school and being like, an iPad's my thing. No, maybe you use an iPad 2 or something, but you need a laptop. And certainly college kids in education at that level beyond, I think they really need a laptop for a lot of stuff. And that they're all on iPad for this that was kind of disappointing. I really was hoping that they were going to come out with a new MacBook Air and say, yeah, we recognize that it's not one size fits all for education. Can't all be iPad.
If they had done both, I think that would have been a much more successful event, like had a lower cost MacBook Air or something. Yes.
But I mean, it's still not going to compete with Chromebooks. Chromebooks are $100 to $200 at volume discounts.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of bothered me a bit about yesterday is that we heard these rumors that the iPad was going to be $259, which would have been killer.
Yes.
And it's $300, and that's a big difference between that and the majority of the Chromebooks. There are Chromebooks that cost $300-$400. The Pixel Book costs $1,000, but the ones that schools are buying, the Samsung Chromebook 3 and things like this, the Acer, they're a couple $100, and like I said, even less. Probably some of them are even free, depending on what you do with them.
Yeah.
So the other thing is about an iPad, you got to get a case, you got to get a keyboard.
They're much more breakable. That's right.
Got those. Yes. So, yes.
And you're right. And if you want a pencil, that's another $89 each for school. So I just don't see how this is going to make any more inroads than they had or didn't have before.
Yeah, Apple makes a case for the longevity And
Yeah, sure.
there is something to be said for that, but still, you got to have that money up front. Like
Right.
you've got to
Right.
be able to make that purchase. It's not all about like schools aren't just going, well, this is going to last us twice as long. Yeah, but you need the money right now. And
That's
Right.
right.
That's a good
maybe the
point,
school
Jason, yeah.
they were at has that money, but
Yeah.
so many schools don't.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
I think
Chromebooks, it's over. Yeah.
I think if we're talking about tablets,
Mm-hmm.
earlier this week, Acer released the Chromebook tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on that front, Apple can absolutely compete. But as Jason was saying, I just don't know how big that market is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a perception problem in terms of what Apple perceiving how schools can spend their money. You know,
Yeah.
it feels like maybe schools have the money to spend, but as in my experience, it's not readily available. It's only available from year to year, and it differs from year to year. There are just so many variants in terms of accessing that money to spend it
Correct.
that, you know,
Particularly public schools.
yeah, particularly public schools. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if a large majority of Apple people
Yeah,
at Apple
something
don't
really
go to
innovative
public
around
schools. So.
pricing. Apple's never going to make a $200 laptop or something like that, but they could have done, conceivably, they could have done something innovative around pricing, where like a lease program or something like that lets makes it easier for schools to spread out the
Absolutely.
cost to make every year or every quarter or whatever, or every month, however it is that they've got to make a budget work, that they can make the budget work in that short time period and not go like, well, we blew past our budget, but it's going to be great in 3 years and we don't have to rebuy another laptop, you know?
Yeah, an iPad leasing program, it would be. I think that would do really well in schools.
Right.
And maybe they have it, maybe they don't. They certainly don't advertise it if they do.
Right.
And I really, I believe, as far as people's interest in Apple, I'm sure, some of you are old enough to remember, I first learned how to do computing basically on an Apple IIe. And I think, that start where Apple was always in the classroom and stuff, and the early
Absolutely.
Macintosh
Yeah.
and stuff is really important. But I think they're losing that battle right now, and I don't like
I
that.
mean, the classroom really kept them afloat for a while.
Yes.
Kept them relevant, kept them visible. And it probably helped with sales as kids came home and said, I want a Mac. But that's just not, people say Apple's lost its focus. Maybe it has, but also schools have shifted, they have less money to work with. They have a lot less money to work with, and they have more kids. They have less teachers, and they're going to buy the cheapest, most, readily available thing. And that right now is Chromebooks. And I don't see Apple making a dent at all in that momentum that Google has.
No.
For me, the other problem with what they announced yesterday is that they didn't bridge this gap between the fact that there's two complete different products and product lines for where they want you to learn to code and where you can actually code.
Yes.
All the learn to code stuff is on iPad, the Swift playgrounds and all that stuff. And you get your kid an iPad so you can learn to code, and he goes through Swift and he goes, I get it. Cool. I learned to code. I want to make an app. It's like, well, no, you need a Mac for that. And the kid's like, what's a computer? Right. So, and if you're a parent, you're really mad that you went and spent all this money on this thing, and now you got to go buy a laptop if you want your kid to try and make an app or something. And little kids, that's not going to matter. High school kids could make an app, especially in teens and stuff. And they would be super psyched to get something in the App Store, and they can't do that. So get Swift Playgrounds on Mac and get Xcode on iOS, or at least just on iPads or iPad Pros or something. Right. They got to bridge this gap, and they're having them in two different worlds. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Xcode's the one thing that I have to assume, Jesus, is coming. WWDC maybe for the iPad, now that we have these 12 and 13-inch iPad Pros. I mean, it's such a ridiculous gap.
Use Xcode, yeah. Oh, just to kind of piggyback on Jason's point. So somebody tweeted before the event, someone got a hold of the curriculum at Lane Tech College Prep High School and showed a screenshot shot of their catalog. And they offer a authoring class in Android, but they don't offer anything iOS related or anything. So there's an interesting
It's interesting that
ironic.
they chose that school.
So,
I did see that somebody else posted that the school takes Apple Pay, which people were saying that's the reason why they took it.
They write tuition at Apple Pay. Yeah, they provide a lot of funding. So
we have an advice question on YouTube, and that is Sandro asking, is it worth buying this new iPad? I have a 4th gen iPad, and I was wanting to change and have the experience with the Apple Pencil. I thought about buying the iPad Pro, but maybe this new iPad?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends on what your use case is. If you are a big time artist, if you want to use it for like really drawing and really getting into like, deep projects, the 10.5-inch Pro's screen, the ProMotion, the True Tone, that's going to be a huge difference maker. I don't know if it's worth $300, but it's a big difference. If you're using the pencil casually for taking notes and for doing things like that, I would not waste $300 on the higher end
Especially
iPad.
since
You
that's
can
what they're
always
aiming at.
upgrade. You can always upgrade down the line, and the pencil you can just take it with you. If you're just trying it out and you want to upgrade your iPad, this is way faster than the 4th gen. Way faster.
Yeah.
I mean, I would make the jump. It's it's not a ton of money, and it's a good machine. We haven't reviewed it, but based on the specs, it's based on what we know of last year's model. It's a good machine.
The other sort of caveat to that is that if you're not balking at the price of the Pro right now, and you're thinking, yeah, I can spend $800 on a tablet and $100 on a pencil, it's only going to be a couple months before WWDC. Right. If there's a new Pro, it would be announced there, and they usually ship kind of right away. They usually don't ship in September when the iPhones, are announced and then ship in November or whatever. They usually ship really quickly after. So if you think the money's going to be worth it, I would expect this year's iPad Pro to be a bigger leap than what they did last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe slimmer bezels, maybe Face ID. There's a lot from the iPhone 10 that they can bring over that would make the iPad a pretty significant upgrade over the 10.5-inch for sure.
So, Leif, in your few minutes using the pencil on this iPad, do you notice a difference between this and using your iPad Pro?
I was thinking I really don't. I mean, it is pretty amazing how, so you see the fluid signature that I just did there, and I was also writing really small.
A little bit lower.
There we go. So yeah, did my signature, wrote very small there. So I said this is me writing as small as I can. And the nice thing is with these is you can zoom in and and write even smaller if you want, and that way you zoom out and you got that. So and that's another thing I think people miss out when they think about writing by hand on one of these things. Is the beauty of digital is you can just move all over the place. Need more room, you can just keep going. And but it actually is a fun way to write. And the pencil, I do think sometimes, as you can see when I was saying it was the smallest I could get, I would like to see a little bit more precision in it. And I don't know, maybe like a sharper tip would do it. And it's already very precise compared to a lot of styli, because, if you look at these normally, they got, kind of, it almost looks like an eraser or something, like on a pencil or something, whereas this actually mimics closer. It would almost be like writing like this, but this actually does closer mimic the balance of the pencil. If you've never used one, is beautiful, because so many styles, they try to make them like they're very little small pens or something like this, but this flows. And Apple originally kind of pitch these towards artists and stuff, but it has that kind of brush-like feel and stuff. It's pleasurable to write with. That's the word for it. So I notice nothing. I mean,
you're not noticing any latency.
There's no lag. Look at that. There's no lag. It's very wonderful. And
there's still nowhere to put it when you're not using it.
Exactly.
I know. Yeah.
There's no slot.
They're selling this to teenagers in schools, and there's like, how many of these are going to get lost because there's no holder? There's not even a space in the cover to put it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these schools are going to have to get covers that get the cases that have the little pencil slots and tether them. They're going to be like, it's going to be like the thing at the bank with the little chain.
Also, how many?
That's
how many
another accessory idea.
Snapped when they put it into the end and they break it off.
So
comes
the
over and
charging
knocks
is a
into
whole
it.
other thing.
Well, someone on Twitter brought it up. I forget their name, But that's what they're saying about the Crayon that they like better is that
Yes.
you can charge it with a cable and that it has like a flat side so it can rest.
It doesn't roll
And
off.
it's
the
a little
desk.
stubbier too,
Yeah.
which is nice.
In case you've
Right,
never
it's not
seen
gonna
it,
roll
that's
off
what
the
you got to
tables.
do with it.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that's also how you pair it. I don't know if you got to see me pair it a few minutes ago.
I wish
That
I
used to
was
go
in the
on.
room when Apple Design came up with that idea. Let's go show Johnny. It works like this. Let's go show
I mean,
Johnny
it's
this.
better than a mouse that you got to turn
I was gonna
upside
say it's
down.
the same guy who designed
Right.
the new mouse.
So,
Yeah, it's
It's
I mean,
like Homer's car. Somebody's relative just got free reign.
I mean, on the one hand, it's super convenient to plug it
Right.
in and charge it from
and
the
it makes
iPad battery,
sense.
but geez, it's just it's a broken port waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, the nice thing about it is unlike your phone where you're doing whatever in the world with that. Me, at least, I usually have my my iPad Pro, where in a safe place because I paid $1,000 for that thing,
Right.
and so I'm a little bit more careful about it. But you can ask the guys here. I don't even have a proper case. I keep it in a leather sleeve, but I don't use a keyboard case or anything. I actually write directly on the screen, and you probably saw me writing on the screen earlier here. I even like the way that feels, and because I actually am kind of a advocate of, and I made no errors. That was another thing that
Yeah.
amazed me. And
I do too. I use the soft keyboard a lot
Yes.
on the iPad, and I don't have any problems with it. I know most people like the tactile feel of a regular keyboard, and I mean, I go back and forth between both liberally.
well, see, here's the thing and I was thinking about this for my own article that I'm writing. You and I are both writers. We write all the time. We've been doing this for years, probably too long, but we're used to that. I have to wonder if it would be different for someone who's actually learning how to type.
Sure,
And seeing as how that's basically unlike a Chromebook, because a Chromebook you have a tactile keyboard right there to go, but whereas
And full sized and all that, yeah.
Exactly, but you got to crank out what is that $100 for Logitech's sturdy case that they had for students, and
Yeah.
With the rugged case or something. I forget what it's
Yes.
called. Something like that. Yeah.
and
Yep.
then another not $89 for that.
Yeah. All these things add up.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They do.
Yeah, your $300 educational iPad purchase is going to end up being $500 a minute at a time.
Right. Yeah.
Run.
Yeah, times 800 students. I mean, and your budget is just not there.
Yeah.
And then people are going to rush out of class and forget it. Yeah. So,
Of course, forget it or just drop it at the bottom of a bag and throw it in the wash. Whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that pencil can be broken.
A
and
year
lost
later,
and-
I'm amazed that I have not lost this thing on my own Apple
The
Pencil.
tip.
because-
Yeah, the little
yes.
eraser tip.
So, yes.
One thing that I was told about the Logitech Crayon is that it doesn't need to be paired.
Oh, nice. So you can just start writing with it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have the pressure stuff.
But it doesn't have the pressure stuff.
Makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
So it is totally geared towards elementary school, so which makes you think they would need the pressure stuff because of they're doing a lot of artistic work, but I don't know. So
Kids it's just about filling in the box.
that's true. There's no gradients. There's no
Yeah, I mean, I
gradations.
assume the software mimics the pressure stuff
Yeah.
well enough for younger kids.
right. Yeah. So Apple also showed off. So they showed off the new iPad. They showed off the iWork suite.
Which doesn't appear to be on there.
Schoolwork
Well,
and
that's-
classroom.
That's why they gave you the gift
the,
card.
the new apps. Well, Classroom existed. Now it's on the Mac.
Actually, there's numbers, but I don't know what version that is.
Yeah,
And-
I was thinking it was like more of the. I mean, here's pages and stuff,
Okay.
but I was thinking more like the educate the classroom. and
Leif,
stuff.
Oh.
is that on 11.3 yet?
Oh, let me look.
Because I know it released strictly for that.
That's
model
that's right.
today.
Somebody was asking. Somebody said all I care about is 11.
Yeah.
Yeah,
11.3 releasing, and Apple did release
This is
11.3
Yeah, there's 11.3. Yes.
only
Okay.
for that.
It's just for
But
that.
it's only
yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
is-
and so that was the speculation. Does it come with it? And that would explain why they released it. If you need to do a restart, if you need to refresh your firmware or something, they need to make that available, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably, and my guess is since those will be in stores like next week or whatever,
Yeah.
it's probably coming really soon for your phones and
Yeah.
everything.
And it's very
That's
interesting.
a-
I'm not seeing the update that supposedly came out. Was that already released? or
I
is it
don't
gonna be
think
like
it's an
update?
update. I think it's because that has 11.3.
They've
When they
installed
released
it. Yeah.
11.3, that means you can
Right.
you can download
Right,
it,
right.
but you won't need
It's on
to.
there. It's on the
They've
site
already
if you-
installed
if
it,
you
yeah.
wanna
That
grab
makes
it.
sense. Okay.
But I mean, I just don't get Apple's iOS just kind of like weirdness. Like that is so not like them to release, maybe it's 11.3.1
Right.
that, but this is a full version that we've been waiting 2 months for. And they release it for one device, but not every other one. It's just,
I just think it's the timing because that
Right.
device is not really available yet.
Yeah,
Like, you can't
technically-
actually-
Technically, this isn't out yet.
Yeah, you can
So-
buy it, but you
Right.
get it next week. I think it'll be out for
so
all the other
Tuesday or
devices
Monday
next
or
week.
Tuesday and
Right.
Friday, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've done this before. There's been a couple of other iOS point releases that have been just for iPhone or
Yes.
just for iPad.
But they generally never come to other ones because they're just like features or compatibility that's strictly for those models. This is a very highly publicized version upgrade that
Yep.
they're just teasing us further now.
And I like the syncing. I mean, I was working on stuff on my Mac at my desk, and I'd already gotten the syncing with stuff that was on my desktop. I mean, and the whole time we were sitting here, even with our horrible Wi-Fi, which has been acting up today, and it took me about 5 minutes to download Notability a minute ago.
So Jack on YouTube is asking if the iPad Mini is a dead product along with like iPhone SE.
I think it's deader than the iPhone SE. I think we're more likely to see an iPhone SE 2 than an iPad Mini 5, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Especially if we get a 6.5-inch iPhone in the fall.
what is the price of the Mini right now? Is it?
think
400.
that's-
It's more than that thing, and it has an A8 processor for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Apple has
yeah,
that
I-
issue of
I
having.
feel like it's like the Mac Mini. It's just
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
or the
even know why
iPod
they're
Touch.
stop
it's-
selling it. Why are they selling it?
Yeah.
If it's just let us know it's dead
Yeah.
and make it go away.
Right.
Yeah, they have that thing where they have products that are long in the cycle and they don't change it's the same price as it was when
Yeah.
it first came out, and then
And
new
they,
products come
if
out.
somebody called him out on, he would say the iPad Mini is an important part of our product lineup. But what are we
Yeah.
seeing here? Like it's been 2 years since we saw an upgrade. Nobody's buying it. No one in their right mind would spend $400 for that when you can get an iPad 9.7-inch with an A10 processor for $329. I mean, who would buy that?
Well, if you want the smaller form factor,
Yeah. You're gonna pay all this more.
I
and
guess.
it's
you're
so much
paying
but
for the
less.
miniaturization.
yeah,
That's what you're paying for. So,
And granted, I used a gigantic iPad Pro, so I'm used to having big stuff. But I almost feel like if I, especially with the pencil, if I tried to go a little bit smaller than this, it wouldn't be as fun. But I am also the same guy that kind of wishes I could use the pencil with my phone. So there is that too. But
Yeah, well, I do too. But I mean, not that one. That one's too big. I
Yeah,
wish they
it's-
came out with a
Yeah.
smaller.
People
thinner
really love the Mini for reading, though. It's
Yeah.
it's very one-handable,
Now,
It's an
when
e-reader.
in its day, it was a cool device. It definitely had its place. I have one. My son uses it now. But yeah, it was cool because it was
It died with plus-size iPhones, is what.
right, its
There
day
was-
was
yeah, yeah,
before the
that's-
Plus came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a time when the iPad Mini was like on par with the iPad as far as processor and storage and all that.
Yeah.
And it just languished or languishes because it still exists.
So do
But
you
yeah,
think,
one day we'll wake up and it'll be gone from the store and we'll never hear from it again.
so is this just all the remnant stock, but they don't want to like decrease the price because then people might buy them over like the newer models or
you're talking like
Yeah,
the
I
mini
No,
stuff.
I
for the
think
Mini?
I would assume there's a factory that makes them. I mean, how
So-
much stock could they have?
they're still making them, you think?
I would assume.
It feels like this
Apple's
is going to
channel
push out a lot of
inventory
them.
is generally about a month and change.
Yeah.
If they had channel inventory of the iPad 4 for 2 years, Tim Cook would kill someone.
Do they make an A8 for anything else? Does anything else use an A8 that they still sell?
Yeah, I was about to mention the iPod
Well,
Touch.
What's
Uses
the
an
iPod?
Oh, iPod
So-
Touch.
Yeah, I was going to say, eventually I think what's going to happen with the Mini is it's going to be iPod Touched, where it's
Okay,
like
yeah.
still on the site if you search specifically for it, still available if you look specifically for it, but it's not really there. There's no-
What's the iPhone SE? Is that an 8 or is that a 9?
That's a 9.
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, then it's just that, I guess. I mean, listen, no one's buying the iPad Mini for super power and probably not anyway. It's a specific device for reading and for doing lighter tasks, but lower the price to $299. It shouldn't be more that much more than the 9.7 that just came out yesterday. Crazy.
What are the specs on the camera on this? Do you know? Let's see.
Isn't
It's
it
8
same as the old-
megapixel.
it's
Yeah.
8 megapixel?
And it's got the crummier FaceTime camera, not the new
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
on the
it's
Pro.
a 1.2 megapixel FaceTime camera.
I gotta say, playing around with it, that's been the first thing that I've been like, ew, when I saw it. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's buying iPads for the camera, but it is a particularly bad one.
I mean, in an education setting, one of the things I like to do it for research is if you have a physical copy, it's nice to, you're not going to need super high megapixels for that, but you can take a photo of the document, the book, or something like that. So,
Although they are pushing that AR stuff, which I assume there's benefits for the better camera. Like it's just a better experience, I would think. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for outside of education, iPads are just hot FaceTime commodities because you get a nice big view, and that front-facing camera is just so bad on the old iPads and now the new low-end iPad. It's just a really bad experience. Like, it's not even about resolution. It's just the brightness and color and everything else is just so awful. Even the new iPad Pros, which have a better front camera, are still kind of
They're still not great. Yeah.
Still, really bad compared to what's on the phones.
Well, we've all been to like an event or like say like an amusement park, and you see somebody hold up an iPad, they're taking pictures or
Occasionally,
recording
you
video
still
with
see
it.
it.
You're like, what are you doing? You're getting crummy video on that. Use your phone. At least the video's better. But people,
I wouldn't be
them.
opposed if the next iPad just did away with the rear camera and just went all in on the front camera and just really upgraded it to the point where it's something that you want to use for
they
your
need it
video.
for the AR though. So
Yeah, the
I
AR.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they need
it's
it for the AR. Yeah.
now here's something interesting. I'm writing in Notes Plus. I downloaded it, which is another one of my favorite apps for taking notes in the iPad Pro. And I honestly think it performs better on this. That's one reason why I stopped using Notes Plus in favor of Notability on my iPad Pro, is because I thought the feeling of writing was a lot better on it. Even though, see, this is really cool. Yeah, you can just scratch stuff out in Notes Plus, and that's one of the reasons.
Oh, that's
why I
cool.
love it.
That is cool.
And I think Notes Plus really understands how to write better. But Notability normally offers a better writing experience. But this is, for some reason, actually a lot better. It almost makes me wonder if there's something wrong with my Apple Pencil. But yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I see a best note-taking apps for Apple Pencil article in your future, Lee.
Yes.
maybe how long was it since you used it on the Pro? It might be a software update.
Yesterday.
Okay, well then that's weird.
Because I was actually preparing for that very article Mike was talking about. Yes. So, so yeah, that is interesting. But
Could it be an 11.3 thing where
that
they
could be, or
souped up something maybe?
Maybe. Yeah.
Interesting. But I mean, it always was nice, but it didn't feel as fluid, and that's what I like about Notability. And see, that's still doing very well here. I mean, yeah, I'm impressed. I see no lag, nothing, and the pressure sensitivity, it's all there.
So just kind of to sum up the other things that were talked about yesterday. So there was the new Everyone Can Create curriculum, which is a free resource for teachers and students to create projects.
Badges, they get badges.
Badges, stinking badges. There was a new classroom for the Mac. So
Yeah.
for people who don't know, when iPads are being used in the classroom, the teachers can use this app called Classroom, that with a capital C. So you can basically, I guess there are a certain set of controls that you can use to control the usage of the iPads. So
Right, you can like dial down to each student and like shut off apps that they're
Right.
using and see what they're doing and things like this.
Yeah, and I saw this at work when I was in the GarageBand session, and the person was telling us what to do, and then she decided to mute all of our iPads because it was GarageBand, so we have the sound on, and she's trying to talk over all the sound. So she goes into Classroom and mutes us all, and then like the mute thing shows up on my iPad, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of creepy.
So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before the show.
So So, but they have that on the Mac now because a lot of teachers use Macs.
Of course. Yeah.
So they want to be able. It's basically a port of the.
That's
iPad app
that's
into-
coming
to
in
the-
June as well.
Yeah.
As the Pages stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then there was an app called Schoolwork that. So basically, in school, so I have sort of a secondhand experience with this because my kids are in school, and they use a lot of web-based apps to like track their assignments and things like that. And there are a bunch of different web-based solutions that teachers can use, and it's not even consistent with the teachers that my kids have. So like, some teachers will use one type of app, another teacher will use a different app. So it's kind of, and all these apps look like they were made in the early 90s.
Yes.
Because the teachers because the school districts are using the most affordable versions of the software, so they end up being older versions with maybe fewer features and not an elegant UI. So they're missing features often, and sometimes the UI isn't as good, and it's just an inconsistent interface. So Schoolwork, from what I saw, was a lot more polished than what I've seen. It seems to also give teachers a lot more control over like assignments and issuing assignments and giving feedback on those assignments and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see if this app gets adopted, because it just seems I believe it's free, but
Yeah, it's free.
yeah, but it's kind of tied into Apple's ecosystem.
Right.
Yeah,
So
right.
if your classroom's using Google Chromebooks, you're not going to see any of these apps being used in these classrooms. So they were interesting apps, and
You basically got to go all in, don't you?
Yeah.
With hardware is the biggest thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I didn't expect this because Apple's Apple. But these tools do look like they're, best in their class. I mean, the ease
Right.
of use, the UI. So what if Apple says, all right, we're going to make a Chrome version or Chrome app of classroom and schoolwork that teachers can download and use and pay us a licensing fee, whatever, but use it on a Chromebook. Get
Yeah, I
into
can
the
see that.
classrooms like Google has. Google started with G Suite for education. It's free.
Yeah.
And then that led to Chromebooks, and now they have, as Leif says, 60% of the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to have a foothold. Apple doesn't have that because you have to buy $300 iPads for everybody to get started.
Well, and they care about a different thing. Like, Google has 60% of the market and 0% of the profit.
Also
like
true.
they're making
Right.
no money
Right.
on
That's
schools,
true.
like
Right.
at all.
Because they make the money
and their
off the
partners,
data.
all the people who make these poor Chromebooks are making like $5 a piece,
Right.
but that's, they don't care.
But
That's,
the
they
ads
just
that
care
pop up in
about,
the Chromebook, yeah.
Right.
yeah, they just care about getting their ecosystem into schools and stuff. And
Right.
if Apple still cares about making a 20% margin or something on every product, or $100 here and there, they're never going to be able to compete in volume with the person who's willing to give it away. Right. That's,
Yeah.
so, and as we were saying before, they may be right when they make a case for your cost of ownership, your cost over time for doing all this, and how hard it is, and what your time is worth, and all that stuff may be cheaper, but that doesn't change the fact that schools have a budget for this year.
Right.
It's this many dollars. And that they're not going to say, well, we can go way over budget because it's going to save us money down the road. That's just not a
No.
thing they can do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's
interesting.
over. I mean, I think it's over, and Chromebooks have won.
Yeah. But Apple's never been about, dominant market share. Like you said, it's always been about revenue. They can get their piece of the revenue pie.
Well,
that'll make them
they,
happy.
They talked a lot about their long history in education, going way, way back. And I, as a kid, I mean, I'm 43, and I grew up when I was in, elementary school and middle school, we had a computer room and a computer class we went to separately, but it was Apple IIs. That's
Right.
all there was. Like, there was no IBMs in schools and stuff for years and years.
The same here.
So they had the entire education market share back in the day.
Yeah.
you know, and I gotta feel like that's. I mean, the market was different. Nobody was willing to make zero money. They didn't have a competitor who was willing to give it away. But I feel like I don't know that they can just say, well, we don't really care about the market share.
It's also, Apple is the largest, richest tech company in the world. If they were to significantly lower these margins for schools, I mean, that would make a statement that says, look, we do care about this market. We're not trying to make money on the backs of kids. Yeah. And and it would pay off down the road if, just like us, we all use Macs as a kid. What are we using now? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it all kind of trickles past, what you're doing at the moment. So if you give out a really good app, a really good experience, the kid goes home and says, Mom, I want an iPad. Mom, I want an iPhone, whatever it is. They probably do that anyway. Yeah. But, it didn't seem to me yesterday that Apple was saying, we're making an investment in America's youth. Uh-huh. It was saying we found a way to maybe make a few more bucks selling iPads to America's youth.
Which makes me sad because Tim Cook usually, I'm sorry, Tim, puts on a show about how he wants Apple to be a force for good and stuff like that. Yeah. And here's a very concrete way in which he could have done that.
Yeah, because these tools are great. They're just, it's a really high cost barrier for most schools.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a case of their intentions. Mm-hmm. I just think they haven't gone out to the rest of America outside of the Bay Area and they're in the super rich Chicago schools and stuff.
And they live in a two-bedroom house goes to $2 million.
Talk to real educators, like actual rank and file teachers, and go like, what do you need and would this do it for you? They would laugh in his face.
You're totally right.
Well, you buy $300 tablets for all your students, and they would. My sister's a teacher. My mom was a teacher her entire life. My cousin's a teacher. Like they would laugh so hard.
I live in Connecticut, and my son goes to public schools, and his elementary school there's 18 kids, and they have 3 iPads. Mm-hmm. And they get to choose what they want to do each day. And if 3 people pick an iPad, that's it. They don't have 18. They don't have one each. He doesn't take it home with him to use, an app that with schoolwork where his teacher can monitor it. Like that's not happening in public school. It just isn't.
Well, see, I got to say, the very fact that they did it in Chicago, and by the way, Lang Tech is actually a public school, but it's selective admission, and that's part of it.
Kind of like Lowell is in San Francisco.
Like a charter school or something.
Yeah. But, I think instead of going, it is still a rich school, even though it's public and stuff, I think if they had done that, to someplace on the south side, like in Hyde Park or something, that's kind of like a middle way. If they had taken the same initiative there, lower prices and everything, and as opposed to this rich, Lang Tech actually does have a history of diversity, so I'm not going to say white school and everything, but someplace that would put out a better message that yes, we are trying to make education accessible with good products to everyone, and that we need to just turn around. But the place where they held it, especially in Chicago. Come on. Yeah, right. I mean, Chicago is a lot better town than people talk about, but let's admit it. Yeah, and so, I mean, if you're going to put something in Chicago, you know what people are expecting. Make a statement. And I'm sad that they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, Apple did not stream the event yesterday, but the video is on their website now. So if you go to apple.com, you can watch the video. It's a little over an hour long. If you're interested in watching it.
You could boil it down to about 25 seconds of interesting stuff.
So you can watch it there. I think that pretty much just about does it for this episode of the Macro Podcast. If you have any questions or comments about the new iPad, Life is doing a review. So if you have anything you'd like him to look at, give us a tweet. Do you want...
you can send me Leif Johnson. It's my name, LeifJohnson. Just send me a tweet.
Yeah, send Leif a tweet. He's going to be using the iPad and reviewing it for us. If you have any other questions regarding the event, let us know. Just a small, quick mention. Apple, the real, true, big announcement from yesterday. Mm-hmm. Was that now you can buy the space gray input devices.
Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
especially for a $20 premium, of course.
That was the big announcement.
On Reddit, they had more upvotes than anything about the iPad. Yes.
So, real quick before we go, Cigar Fred wants you just to really recap the pros and cons of the new iPad.
So pros and cons of the new iPad. So it's you
Pros.
get
Pencil support is
Pencil
number one,
support.
of course. Yeah.
yes, pencil support.
Pencil Sport, way
Processor,
faster,
18.
same price.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a lot faster than the previous iPad. It's the same price as the previous iPad.
Yeah.
$329. The $299 price is education pricing, so you have to go through education channels to do
Yeah.
that, which is probably means some sort of bulk pricing.
The cons would be you're not getting the ProMotion or the True Tone display,
Right.
and you're not getting 64 gigs of storage. But
mean,
and there's no smart connect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost hard to call them cons.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
Those
that's
are
not really
advantages
They're
of
just-
the Pro,
yeah.
but it's
Exactly,
so
yeah,
much more
exactly.
expensive.
By the way, this is what I think is one of the big advantages for like a student. See, you have your stuff over here on the left, and then you can write notes about it over here on the right. And
Yeah, the
that's what
multitasking is awesome.
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, you get pretty much 98% of the multitasking that you get on the iPad Pro on the 9.7. It's the only thing you don't get is a little bit of the slide over features because of the extra RAM. There's 4 gigs of RAM on the Pro and only 2 on the 9.7 inch. So but it's very, very slight.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's all there. Honestly, if I had a choice between a 329 new iPad and a 250 old iPad, which was Best Buy was selling that today, I would choose the new one for an extra $70.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because of the
Yeah.
speed.
$80,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
I especially think in like 2 or 3 years when we're on iOS 13 or whatever, you're gonna be really glad you got the more powerful
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the pencil support.
and the pencil support.
Yeah. Which as Jason said, you don't have to buy one, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, it
If
is.
you want to buy one down the line.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
That just about does it for this week's episode of the Macworld Podcast. Join us next week when we'll talk more about Apple news and issues, and we'll probably talk to Leif more in depth about his review of the iPad and the Apple Pencil. So I want to thank Jason and Mike for joining us. Thank you, guys.
After hours for me, people.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
after
that's
hours, so
right.
thanks. So I want to thank Leif. Thank you very much, Leif.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dan, our producer.
You're very welcome.
And I want to thank the audience. Thank you very much for joining us with your comments and questions. That always welcome your comments and questions. A lot of good comments and questions. So join us next week. Thank you. See
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Bye.